Bonsoir. Tonight's evening's entertainment is going to be a pretty much straightforward reading of an open letter written by one Stuart W. Card, who up until very recently was an adjunct associate professor at Syracuse University. Now, at Syracuse University, there was a fraternity, and by was a fraternity, I mean that it's not a fraternity anymore, because this video went live, or leaked into the live zone of the internet, and caused that campus uproar that we're all so familiar with now. So here's a bit from the video. It's very explicit, but before we do that, I just want to let everybody know that tomorrow night, which will be from my position right here in time, Thursday the 10th of May at 7:30, I will be participating in an event starring Jordan Peterson. Actually, no, I'm not participating. I'm observing an event starring Jordan Peterson at the Moore Theater in Seattle. And afterwards, I will be very much available to drink beer with you if you happen to be at this Jordan Peterson event. So that out of the way, let's get to the good stuff, and then let's get to the really good stuff. So here's the video.
To Joe that I love black cock. Up with a plan to fuck wheelchair retarded Yankee. He's drooling out of his mouth because he's retarded in a wheelchair. So the hole is already very lubricated. Oh wait, they love the brakes. No. I just go to town. What the fuck is that thing? What the fuck, you're uncircumcised, you fuck? Help! I'm falling and I can't get up!
I'm going to read this letter now, titled Why I Am No Longer SU Faculty. Again, by Stuart W. Card. April 23rd, 2018. Recently, Syracuse University has been in the national news. A video surfaced of a fraternity using language generally found offensive, reflecting attitudes generally considered deplorable, in what was apparently a mock initiation ceremony. Reaction on campus and around the country was swift and, predictably, more emotional response to hearsay than objective analysis of evidence. The statement from the fraternity that the video was a skit performed by new pledges, intended to satirize such attitudes and caricature a conservative member like Archie Bunker in an old television series, All in the Family.
Hey, the world has changed, Edith. This ain't like them olden, golden days, you know, the old South. With all the colored people. They love their fine old white folks back then.
Was summarily dismissed. A second video surfaced for which I saw no explanation from the fraternity. There is no doubt that, aesthetically, the videos show extremely poor taste. If the behavior depicted therein was intended to exemplify the genuine attitudes of the fraternity, then they clearly do not conform to those acknowledged publicly by the majority of modern society. More important to me, such attitudes would be irrational and non-pragmatic. However, it seems very dubious they reflect the members' true attitudes, and their claim that it was satire seems believable, to me, based on the very limited evidence readily available. The campus descended within minutes into an orgy of political correctness. Imagine that. The fraternity members were regarded as guilty until proven innocent. Imagine that. Analysis of the videos or any other evidence was not encouraged. Imagine that. Instead, discussion centered on how the revealed existence of the videos made some people feel. Now, let's try not to imagine that, but actually feel that for a moment. Do you feel that? Thus, there was no way the fraternity members could be proven innocent. It was not about what they did or their offered explanations of it. It was about what they said while playing roles in skits and how others felt. Public forums and private meetings were convened. Standard demagoguery was used. The heinousness of the speech and actions, if taken as genuine rather than satire, was used to prove the guilt of the accused. The fraternity was not merely suspended, but permanently expelled from the campus. It is difficult to imagine how due process could possibly have followed in only 3 days from the first video leak. Imagine that. How hard that would be to imagine. Due process. I guess and this is kind of basically my argument, is that the due process is already done with regards to this whole offendedness culture. The due process is already in place. All you need is the incident to proceed with the prosecution. That's all you need, is the incident. You don't need to look past the image or the video of the incident to go full force, full steam ahead, or full margarine ahead, as Napoleon might have put it back in the day. I personally know neither the fraternity members nor the university administrators. I am not a member of this or any college fraternity. I do not presume to judge guilt or innocence, nor appropriate penalties for any found guilt. I do, however, see clear signs of an academic culture gone mad. Mob rule is the order of the day. Administrators at this and other universities around the country, to keep their jobs, must pillory any individual or organization accused of actions or speech that upset the mobs, and thus potentially the financial supporters of the institution. Now, what happens when certain members of an institution find out that their donors are actually believers in things that are abhorrent according to the principles of the doctrine preached at universities? Will there ever be a case where a donor is excused from donating to a university because of their belief structure? I want to call out academics. If you truly believe in what you believe and you want to silence professors and students for believing things, I challenge you to actually punish your donors by stop accepting their donations because they believe things different than you believe, and treat your donors just as well as you treat the faculty, students, and staff who do not align with your ideology. I bet you won't do it. To continue, the supreme value has become avoiding the emission of any stimulus that might offend anyone. Acknowledging unpleasant factual realities or expressing certain opinions has become thought crime. Objectivity is long forgotten. My illogical fallacy is as good as your sound syllogism. Your desire that 2 + 2 = 5 trumps my certain knowledge that 2 + 2 = 4. The law of gravity can be repealed if an ethnic, gender, religious, or other group feels that it discriminates against them. This is dangerous. Bridges either carry the weight of the vehicles and pedestrians crossing them because they have been built correctly by engineers who did the math and took the measurements, or they fail and people die because it was someone's unsupported opinion that the concrete was good enough. Fair trade. Shade grown. I received a mass email from an administrator requesting faculty opinions and suggestions. I replied, and this is a block quote, "I strongly believe that reinforcing the current myth that individuals are likely to be damaged by exposure to expressions that they find offensive and thus require pampering is a disservice to our students and our profession. I know my view on this is out of sync with current opinion. I was toughened as a youth, not just by emotional bullying, but by physical beatings by much older and larger students. I survived. I got stronger. Coddling promotes weakness. This is my honest opinion, formed on the basis of my personal experiences and my observations of evolutionary processes. Put me on a, quote, do not hire as an adjunct anymore, end quote, list if you consider my position so objectionable as to disqualify me from further service. Respectfully, Stuart W. Card, Adjunct Associate Professor." End block quote. Unsurprisingly, the administrator replied that the misalignment between my values and those of the college indeed disqualified me from continuing to teach SU students. I find this bitterly amusing. Formerly, freedom of conscience and speech were sacred in American universities. Formerly, preparing students to face the real world with inter alia, all its gender bias, racial prejudice, and other unfairness and evil was valued as useful. Now, we must be broadly tolerant and inclusive, except of certain views that are obviously wrong, held only by conservative adult white males and other ignorant cultural imperialist bigots. Now, we must let the inmates run the institution, according to their uneducated, inexperienced, irrational whims. And it is our fault they are so, as we have encouraged subjective emoting over objective thinking. Now, we must create a safe space in which our children can remain happily ignorant, soft, and unprepared for jobs and situations where economic and even physical threats will be much more substantial than ugly words. I do not seek reinstatement. I do not feel wronged by the termination of my academic status. SU is a private institution free to choose its own beliefs, values, policies, procedures, and personnel. I am likewise a private citizen and economic free agent, able and eager to make my own choices, based upon my own observations and analysis. I chose to make the administration aware of my belief in this context. When asked, presumably under the assumption that individuals would either echo the party line or, if they disagreed, keep silent to keep their jobs. I have the luxury of being a practicing engineer/entrepreneur, occasionally serving only as an adjunct, not for the money, as the time away from my primary business makes teaching actually cost me on a net basis. I am willing to accept the predictable consequences of my choice. The fraternity members will have to deal with the consequences that they, with less experience, were perhaps less able to predict of their choices. This is perhaps the most important point I wish to make. We all will have to deal with the consequences of all our choices, primarily our own, but also those of the individuals who live and work around us to build and maintain our world. Failing to prepare students to make good choices in the world that is, not the world in which they might wish to live, which we and they have not yet finished building, step by difficult step, is civilization suicide. I write this brief statement to explain to my coworkers and friends the change in my academic status, and as a warning. We are tearing down the long proud intellectual traditions of Western civilization, which made the United States of America one of the most productive, prosperous, safe, and free countries in history. Students, beware professors who will only tell you what you are comfortable hearing, and not demand critical thinking based on empirical observations. Parents, beware the complaints of your student children, who might prefer your lifelong financial support to their learning hard lessons. Professors, beware the loss of your essential nature as teachers, your soul. If you sell out genuine learning, often involving debate, for a non-controversial path to tenure and advancement, citizens, beware an electorate that lacks the basic logical and mathematical skills to recognize when a demagogue is selling, as putatively beneficial to you but really only to him, a fundamentally illogical plan. Consumers, likewise, beware products and utilities designed by engineers who have been taught that how an idea makes them feel is more important than its measured correspondence with objective reality. I doubt that my little protest will make much difference in the grand scheme of things, but perhaps it will help awaken one mind to recognize that the propaganda, confusion, and maya with which we are surrounded is not the reality that ultimately governs, which science attempts to approximate and engineering struggles to manipulate, mostly, we hope, for the general benefit of mankind. I close by begging you, whether you have read it before or not, to read, right now, it is under one page, Robison Jeffers' Shine, Perishing Republic. And I'm going to read that, which is a poem. Shine, Perishing Republic. While this America settles in the mold of its vulgarity, heavily thickening to empire, and protest, only a bubble in the molten mass pops and sighs out, and the mass hardens, I sadly smiling remember that the flower fades to make fruit. The fruit rots to make earth. Out of the mother and through the spring exultances, ripeness and decadence, and home to the mother. You making haste, haste on decay. Not blameworthy, life is good, be it stubbornly long or suddenly. A mortal splendor, meteors are not needed less than mountains. Shine, perishing republic. But for my children, I would have them keep their distance from the thickening center. Corruption never has been compulsory. When the cities lie at the monster's feet, there are left the mountains. And boys, be in nothing so moderate as in love of man, a clever servant, insufferable master. There is the trap that catches noblest spirits that caught, they say, God when he walked the earth.
Your turn, Lan. Sweep across.
This one goes out
Mira will be just behind you.
to Mr. Card. Thank you, sir, for having the integrity to stand up to your convictions and speak out when the prompt arose for you to do so. I in no way stand by what these young men, how they acted or what they said. I in no way stand by how the administration capitulated, once again, as they are bound to do, to the momentum of our moment, which momentum is not inevitably going to crash us, but some of us need to start stepping a little harder on the brake. Good night. Come to Seattle tomorrow. Find me. Email me, message me if you want to meet up. We'll figure something out. I love you all. Good night. And thanks to my supporters for sending me this wonderful outfit. Ciao.